Hi, and welcome to Dare to Be Authentic Radio. I'm your host, Maury Mitchell, and I have a very special guest today. Her name is Kayla Sue Danford, and she's written a book which I absolutely love the title. It's called Yes, Yes, Squirrel. And her purpose for writing this book is to empower the reader to build their self awareness and become an expert on their own sexuality on their terms. She also wants to break down the taboos and stigmas behind ADHD and sex so both can be seen in a most positive framework. Kayla is the mother of a special needs child, has been married for 24 years, and enjoys several hobbies. Welcome to the show, Kayla. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. How are you today?
I'm doing great as well. So let's talk a little bit about what inspired you to write this book.
Sure. I think the biggest inspiration is just the fact that I've lived it. I've had the traits of ADHD since childhood, but I really had an initial diagnosis until I thought of myself when I turned 40. A lot of that started out when my daughter was diagnosed on the autism spectrum, seeing a lot of what she was going through, educating myself on autism spectrum and neurodivergence.
Right.
And it really just rang a bell for me, seeing what all of that, thinking back on those childhood memories and my experiences that, oh, something might be going on here. I've always just thought, well, maybe it's just my problem. Maybe I'm just weird. I
Mhm.
don't click with other people. I have this social awkwardness. Maybe it's just something that I'm doing wrong. And it wasn't until I had that light bulb moment with my daughter
Wow.
and getting that diagnosis behind me that it really put together a missing puzzle piece. Not saying that made everything perfect once I had that diagnosis behind me, but
Right.
it gave me some answers to start out with and also gave me some tips and strategies to help manage my day to day life, my interactions, just to help them flow and manage a bit better.
Mhm.
And the reason behind this book, one of those facets of that was just my sexual well being and intimacy in the relationship with my husband. So I've been there. I know that there are other people out there who have probably gone through that, especially as late diagnosed women,
Yeah.
and wanted to get this book out there to show them that you're not alone. There are ways that we can find to work around what works best for you. And I think that's at the heart of, as you say with your podcast, of living authentically is just finding out about yourself and
Yes.
the ways that you can make your personal best come out.
I agree with you, Kayla. Wow, I can't imagine having gone through 40 something years, 40 years of thinking, what's wrong with me? Because that's what we always blame ourselves. What's wrong with me?
Exactly, exactly. And that's the thing a lot of women do. And you can't really blame anybody behind it with my experience growing up because, number
Right.
one, they really didn't know much about neurodivergence, especially ADHD or ADD in that time period. I was going through elementary school in the late 80s.
Hmm.
And what they did know about it, they were looking more at that boy in the classroom who's bouncing off the walls, that can't pay attention, can't sit
Right.
still. And they're not necessarily looking at that quiet girl whose thoughts are running a mile a minute and may have been conditioned, like I was, to mask because that's the way you're supposed to act. This is the way you're supposed to talk. This is the way you're supposed to work in the world around you, whether it doesn't necessarily work for you or not. And that caused a lot of frustration.
I can't imagine. How did it feel now that you had your diagnosis and were beginning to find
Mm-hmm.
tools? How did it feel I'm sure that you were able eventually to let down that mask that was just choking you, obviously.
Obviously, yes, yes.
How,
It was really just a big sigh of relief.
okay, that's what I can
Best way that I can put it. Yeah.
I can't imagine the stress and the anxiety just trying to keep, like you say, this is what society says you're supposed to do, and this is how you behave, and just to fit
Exactly.
into that.
And it goes through a lot of that too, not only with, this sphere here of ADHD and neurodivergence, but I think we get a lot of that still as just like that sphere of like masking of how you're supposed to be as a woman, how
Mm,
you're supposed to be as a wife, as a mother. So it almost kind of creates for me that perfect storm. And I'm sure that does for a lot of people. And
right.
it's funny the way that you mention anxiety because neurodivergence, ADHD, a lot of people before they get that official diagnosis or even seek it out or speak with somebody, it is very common to be mistaken with depression, anxiety. I had that myself. I mean, I had doctors who said, well, we think you might have anxiety, you might have depression, send you down that medication route, and
Right.
it might help to tamp things down a little bit, but you just still get that feeling like something's off. And no, that isn't it exactly. There's more to this, and just really fighting to dig deeper and really learn authentically, again, how to become your own advocate.
That's fantastic. So, what suggestion would you have for someone who maybe has been diagnosed with anxiety or depression, but is still feeling something's not off? Where do they go for help? How do they, get more information on this for themselves?
Well, I think the big thing is if you have that feeling, don't ignore it.
Mm,
You might have people who say, oh, well, this is just something, it's a quirk, or, oh, this is just you. You've got that little offbeat thing going on. But authentically, again, just trusting your gut. And if you feel like there's a part of you that, there's something going on there, you're not quite sure about it, but you feel like it's something that is kind of dampening your ability to live that authentic life that you feel or that you can have,
hmm
dig a bit deeper into it. I mean, I did a lot of research in regards to looking at learning from my daughter's experience about neurodivergence. There's some great resources out there to take a look at for starters. I think the big thing is just having a community around you too, with trusted family and friends. If you're having these feelings, to express them. I
Right.
think it's so easy to suppress that feeling because I spent a lot of time just feeling like you need to fit that box that people want to put you into, that you're seeing everybody else, it seems like they're just navigating so flawlessly through their everyday lives and wondering, why can't I do that?
Right.
So be your voice, use your voice, dig deeper, talk with people, and keep speaking until you find somebody who will listen and hear you and find a way to work with you to figure out what's going on and finding a way to get to where you want to be.
I love that. Keep speaking till someone listens. Because sometimes it takes a lot of speaking and going through a lot of people who don't listen. They don't know how to listen. It's not that they don't want to help you, but I love that. That is fantastic.
Exactly,
So now, as you've
for
gone this
sure.
journey, what are you most passionate about these days?
I think the biggest thing is just finding outlets for expression. And I've really just been learning since I hit 40, it's almost a renaissance thing of just that being able to learn to get comfortable in your body, in your voice, in your skin, and finding ways to bring it out to the world in ways that feel comfortable and authentic for you,
Mhm.
being able to express that and learning to kind of limit that anxiety or fear behind whether, okay, they're going to think I'm weird, or
Mhm.
no, that's not good enough. That's not what people expect me to be. I've always believed the big thing that you cannot draw from an empty well.
Right.
And I think the big thing is living authentically is recognizing that you have that well in yourself that you need to fill to be able to be at your best for not only yourself, but for the people around you, your children, your
Yes.
spouse, your family, your friends. And you're doing them a service by that. But the biggest thing is you're doing a great service to yourself by being able to get comfortable in that voice and being able to use it and limiting the fear that you have behind it. Because one thing that I've seen is that my life has improved tremendously when you get to a point where you're more comfortable asking for forgiveness than you are for permission. You have a right to take up space. You
Yes.
have a right to express your feelings. So, for God's sakes, do it.
So true. So true.
Mm-hmm.
So would you mind sharing with us a couple of ways that you fill yourself back up that work for you?
Yes, I think the biggest thing, I'm a big nature girl. I
Mhm.
love getting out in nature. If anybody's talked about or heard about the practice of grounding, have you ever heard of that?
Yes, absolutely.
It's basically just getting out there. I like to just go into nature and be silent, still myself, and just listen to what's going on around me. It's that moment for myself where I can just silence that mile a minute thought and wave frame and just listen to what nature has for me, what messages, what can I take away from what I'm experiencing in that moment then and there. And I feel like that's shifted too to those moments where I'm not exactly out in the woods, but just my day to day with people. And you're going to have to forgive me. One of my quirks that I have is I love to speak a lot in just movie and pop culture reference. I found that my life actually is enriched. Did you ever play Sims or see people play that?
No, I never did.
Okay. It's almost kind of like a reality where you build these worlds and societies and you interact and you talk with the people in the game. And I have really had that shift now as opposed to just trying to like hide or tuck myself in because I feel so overwhelmed sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
it happens.
Yeah.
But just starting to find those ways to listen. And they always have these people in the games that have like this little symbol above their head. It looks like a green diamond. And those are the people who have some sort of wisdom to impart to you, might have an interesting conversation, might have a tip or a hack for you along your journey in the game. So I've almost kind of started to learn to play my day to day life like a them, just taking that time to be present, look at the people around me, interact, and just finding those people who have those nuggets or those bits of wisdom that you can take away with your journey, unpack and pack as necessary.
Fantastic. I love that.
So it's really just about finding those ways that are comfortable for you to express yourself.
Of course, everybody has their own ways, but I love the part about nature, and I need to get out.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Reminding me, thank you for reminding me that I do have to get out more and get my bare feet on the ground because it just feels so good.
Right.
Fantastic. So, what do you think is the main message that you're trying to bring to the public?
With my book in regards to ADHD and intimacy, it's a few things. Number one, it's about the fact of authenticity with yourself. First of all, the book, I mentioned in the intro, just a bit of humor here, that anybody who reads my book, the objective was not to turn you into this, wild and crazy chandelier swinging acrobatic sex expert.
Right.
The yeah, yeah. The purpose of the game in this book is to not become a full out sex expert, but it's to become an expert on your sexuality, your comforts, your preferences, and finding tips and techniques in regards to finding that. Because I think that's one of the best things and the best service you can do for yourself and any potential partner
Mhm.
is coming to a relationship, or in this case, sometimes even coming to the bedroom with that knowledge of yourself and
Mm.
also having those tips and techniques of ways that you can communicate that positively with a partner. I've learned this about myself. Here's my likes, here's my preferences, here are my comforts.
Yes.
And being able to draw a partner into that conversation of, okay, well, what are yours? And being able to build from there of what works best for you in that relationship where you can both be able to have that fulfilling sexual intimacy and that fulfilling relationship with each other.
I love that. Excuse me. And I love the part that I can feel how confident you are. There's a confidence that you need or that you build as you're doing these things
I
because
would say that's true. Work in
it,
progress. It's still a work in progress, but just knowing you're going down the road and learning.
yes, but it takes some confidence to do that. If you don't have any confidence, you don't want to tell anybody your preferences because you're afraid you're going to bother them. They're going to think you're too much. All these crazy things
For
society
sure.
taught us, right? So I
For
love that
sure.
you bringing that up. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about your book. What are the main
Mm-hmm.
ways that you believe your book helps others?
Well, I think the big thing at the heart of what I wanted to do is I wanted to write this from a very sex positive perspective. Because let's be honest, not only with the world of neurodivergence, but just sexuality in general, there's still so much stigma, so much taboo around the world of sex. And
Yeah.
it can be a hindrance in regards to us being able to communicate effectively, to advocate for our needs, for our
Mm.
safety, for our overall health.
Yes.
The biggest experience that I mentioned that was a game changer for me, or just like lit the fire. I mentioned this in my introductory chapter, is the fact that when I was a child, I was that child at the public library who brought a book to my mother and was like, hey, can I check this out? This looks interesting. And it was Dr. Ruth Talks to Kids.
Oh my gosh.
That was one thing that it could have been a make or break moment right there in regards to just my attitudes on sexuality. She could have had that recoil and horror or cringe of just like, no, 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 we're not getting that. That's not appropriate. No way whatsoever. And that could have shaped my sexual attitudes. She still had a little bit of that cringe moment. I think any parent would,
Uh-huh.
but she did let me check it out.
Wow.
And that's one thing that taught me that, sex is a natural thing. It's a physiological process that has just as much power in our life as the need for food, the need for water.
Mhm.
It's something that should be respected and be able to be communicated openly. And I think that does a service and will help us in general if we can do more of that to break those taboos.
Mhm.
If you would, I'd like to do one exercise that I did in the introductory chapter real quick, just to demonstrate
Let's do
the importance behind that.
it. Okay.
Just throw out a question here to you. How would you describe the process of drinking water? Like, what does it feel like?
Oh, I love water. It just feels refreshing. It's cooling. Um, it feels like life to me. It's like,
Okay. What are the benefits of drinking water to your body and just to your physical and mental health?
well, health, because we need our bodies are made mostly of water. It's healthy for you. It keeps you hydrated. It's a wonderful thing.
All right, very good. So I'm going to shift gears here a little bit and just pose another question to you with everything that you said there. Keeping that in mind, how would you describe to somebody how a healthy and fulfilling sex life feels, looks, what it does for you?
Well, number one, it creates a very good connection with your partner, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's just more wonderful with each other. I don't even more loving and you're more connected. And of course, you're sexually satisfied, which is a wonderful thing. But it just, again,
Definitely.
it's healthy for your body. It gets your blood flowing. It just gets you going. Yeah.
And that's one thing I think discussing sexuality should start to be as commonplace for us as drinking a glass of water. I mean, that's one thing is I think that our sexual health and our sexual awareness should take just as much reverence, as just as much attention as our physical and our mental health too.
Hmm.
And just different things that we do for that. That was one TikTok video that I did to promote my book.
Uh,
Kind of a bit tongue in cheek funny, but it was taboo breaking where it was a couple talking. And the man comes in and he's like, hey, babe, did I see you at the store today? She just gets real, uh, yeah, you did. Well, why did you run away when I saw you? I got embarrassed. I was buying a toothbrush, you know? And it's like, why do we treat sexuality and our sexual health with this taboo, but then we treat something for our physical health, like brushing our teeth, as so commonplace?
mm,
Everybody brushes their teeth. It's an
right.
important part of keeping ourselves healthy, being able to keep ourselves at our best game wise. I mean, why should one be taboo and one be considered okay? They're both an important part of keeping ourselves healthy and being able to keep functioning in our well being.
Wow, I agree. I love what you're doing. You're so authentic, and that's one of the reasons I wanted you on my show. You're so authentic
Thank you.
and you speak so authentically as well. And it's just a wonderful thing. What a blessing that your mom let you take that book out.
It is indeed. Yes,
How old were you?
absolutely.
I'm curious, how old were you?
I actually just turned 42 on the 16th.
No, when you took out that Dr. Ruth book.
Oh, okay, okay. I had initially written that I was 8, but I went back and did the research and I was 10. So it
Okay.
was just that young kid. I was a nonfiction reader anyway out the gate. I didn't care too much for fiction,
Right.
but it just is one of those things, like one of those moments where this came across my eye. I was flipping through, like, okay, this is something that seems interesting to me. I can learn something from this. So thank goodness that moment came about.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic. As I was thinking about that and why we have these taboos, and I was raised Roman Catholic, so we didn't even talk about anything in my household. And
For
so,
sure.
but I always think that the root of this having happened in society is fear.
Yes.
Fear of what can happen, if you start having sex, or fear of whatever. So what would you say to that part of it? How can we um, eliminate having so much fear around it?
Well, I don't want to say that we should have absolutely no fear, but I think we need to get our fears a bit healthier.
Okay.
That's another thing that I mentioned in the book is the fact that sex is natural, but it does come at a responsibility
Yes.
to ourselves and to our partners to be able to personally advocate for our own safety and be able to keep and communicate for the safety of our partners in mind as well. That's some of the research too with ADHD or neurodivergence is individuals who are experiencing that they found because of some of the challenges might be more likely to engage in unsafe sex practices, make riskier partner choices, be more subject to abuse and exploitation. So there does need to be some cautious fear around that, but I think it should be something that we shouldn't have it be all encompassing when
Hmm.
it comes to fear about sex.
Right.
Yes, there are some things, there are some challenges that we need to be advised of, but here are the ways that you be as authentic as you can in your sex life by making sure that you are that voice for yourself to keep yourself safe, keep yourself happy on a physical, mental, spiritual level, and being able to be there as well to make sure that the same thing happens for your partner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very good. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So, what else would you like to say to the listener that's really on your heart today?
I think the biggest thing is just again the authenticity of your journey is not going to look the same as anybody else's.
Hmm.
This is your journey, this is your road to travel, so you're wasting a lot of time, and I did too, you know. And I'm going to admit that I've made those mistakes of trying to live the way that I saw everybody else living and
Right.
thinking, okay, I'm doing that because that's apparently the way that I'm supposed to do it, you
Yes.
know? And if I'm not doing it exactly like the other people are doing, it must be something wrong with me. Not the case.
Right.
We're all different. We have our own preferences, our own comfort levels. So, for God's sakes, you better learn about yourself first because that's going to get you in such a much better place in regards to your physical health, your spiritual health, your mental health, and realizing that in those intimate moments, it's not about having this checklist of, okay, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this in
Mhm.
order to get fulfillment for myself in my sex life or be able to give that fulfillment to a partner.
Mhm.
It's about communication.
Yes.
It's about making sure that you're coming to the table, and my book focuses a lot on self exploration, learning about yourself, learning these things about your preferences, and being able to find a way to share those findings with your partner and be able to listen and encourage them to give back that same type of building knowledge and communication with each other because that's the only way you're really going to do it is noticing that you're two unique people
Mhm.
and you're going to come together much more effectively by having that knowledge of yourself and of each other and finding ways to work as authentically as you can with each other and not having that social checklist of, oh, this is good, this is
Yes.
bad. It's
Yes.
about what is good for me or what works best for me or best for us.
That's wonderful. I love that. I love how much you talk about authenticity and actually there was a time in my life where I had to come back to me. I had kind of lost myself in
Right.
being a stay-at-home mother, three kids,
Yes.
running
Yes.
around for everybody, church, PTA, you name it, I did it. And
Mm-hmm.
I had to come back to me and didn't even realize I had lost myself, right? You're just caught up in this.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some ways that you suggest for getting back in touch with yourself?
First of all, I think it's that acknowledgement. It has to start from there. They say, bar none, with a lot of stuff, that admitting is the first step to improvement.
Mm,
And that was what it was for me, is just getting to that point, like you said, with a bunch of different things as a woman, a spouse, a mother, a member of the community.
mhm.
Taking that moment when you recognize, okay, everybody else around me seems pretty happy except me.
Right,
Why am I not happy? Am I trying to be what I think is the good girl, everything to everyone, but not taking that moment of, okay, I need to take care of myself, or I need to know what's going to make Kayla happy,
right.
you know? And I came to that point where even just a question as simple as, what makes Kayla happy? You have that moment of,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't know, right?
So one of those things that I did it too. I'm still day to day. It's not just a one and done thing. It's a day to day challenge and building that knowledge in yourself and being able to go along that journey.
Yes,
But if you're having those feelings, then damn it, own it, admit it, because if you just keep on trying to push forward without acknowledging that in yourself, you're doing more of a disservice than anything. Not only for yourself, but that's eventually going to spill into everything else around you. So
absolutely.
taking that moment to stop and being able to find those little ways here and there to build that knowledge for yourself. I was lucky in the fact that I had another thing too that inspired the book was I took a graduate course
Mm,
on human sexuality, and I loved it. I found the subject matter fascinating, just talking about the history, the politics,
wow.
all of these influences on sexuality. And that was really a driving point for me, just having that interest. So I think for people, it's about something similar. I mean, it might not be human sexuality, but
Right.
what sparks that passion in you? You
Yes,
know, find something that you have that interest in and just learning what drives you, finding ways to have that expression, because that's, I think, where all this authenticity starts. Is people can tell when you're talking about something that you are genuinely excited about.
so
So
true.
if you can find that in yourself, everything else will come eventually.
I so agree. You're telling my story. So I agree wholeheartedly. One of the things that I did, I had read in a book, and I think it was by Cheryl Richardson, a top
Okay.
life coach, that if you wanted to get back to you, remember what you did when you were in high school,
Oh
what you
yeah.
loved to do. And I'm like, what did I love to do? Well, I love to read, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited. But in contrary to you, I loved reading novels, historical novels, things like that. But I
Right.
had come to a point in my life where I was only reading self-help and religious books and nothing for fun.
Yes.
And the
Mm-hmm.
other thing I wanted to do was I always wanted to write, and I had done some writing in high
Yes.
school for paper and made the mistake of having this girlfriend of mine. She was like 4 years old to look at it and she trashed it. So I said, oh, I'm no good as a writer. So at that point in my life, I started reading novels for fun
There
and
you go.
joined a group. And it completely changed my life because that was the beginning of coming back to me.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And it's an evolutionary process.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I had actually. I have a website for my book and just the author's perspective.
Oh.
And I wrote down these philosophies of what, in my opinion, I feel like sex positive means.
Hmm.
And one of the big ones is that it's evolutionary. So we are people who evolve over time. And it's our interests, it's our hobbies. When it comes to my book with sexuality, I mean, there is no way that as a 42-year-old woman, my experience of sex and interactions and intimacy is going to be different from Kayla when she was 21,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And what we need to do is we need to embrace those differences.
Yes.
We need to take a look. I mean, thank 21-year-old Kayla, because her experiences had a part in shaping 42-year-old Kayla, who she is today, what her attitudes were, what her experiences were.
Right.
But you don't want to get stuck in that same thing, because you're really, again, and I say this like a broken record, doing that disservice to yourself. You want to thank those stages that you went through. they were positive, whether they were negative, they played a part. And acknowledging that, it helps you to move forward. It helps you to be able to be more in tune with yourself and just appreciating yourself along the journey.
That's fantastic. I love that you say that because not too many people talk about evolution, and that's just not in sex, but in all areas of your life.
Absolutely.
We think, okay, I found the perfect way of doing this, whatever it may be.
Right.
And this is great. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. But then things aren't working very well. We can't hold
Right.
on to that just because we've always done it that way.
For
You've
sure.
done it that way. So I love that. Well, Kayla, it has been fantastic having you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing so authentically
Thank you.
audience. And the link to the book will be right here on the podcast to her website. And you can reach out to Kayla anytime. So thank you so much for listening to Dare to Be Authentic podcast. And we'll catch you again next time. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.